Life is crazy, isn't it? We all aren't dealt the same deck of cards when we're born, and I myself wasn't dealt the best hand. I grew up really poor in West Virginia. My parents divorced when I was 1, and when I was 6, my mom sent us, my brother and sister and I, to live with my dad. Now, my dad was a smart guy, but he could never hold down a job. He was a violent and eventually a terminal alcoholic. By the time I was 18, we had moved about 30 different times. Now, my life was chaotic by any measure, but I had one saving grace: my Uncle Woody, my dad's brother. Uncle Woody tried to make sure that we had food and clothes and a place to sleep. I'm a second-generation Lebanese American, and like many immigrant families, success is highly valued. Material success, money, and status. But what motivated me more when I was young was simply escaping poverty. And what better way to escape poverty, I thought, than to become a lawyer? So I had a goal. Now, most of the Lebanese folks I knew were entrepreneurs, small business people, like my uncle. So when I eventually became a lawyer, my uncle was pleased. And he encouraged me to go into private practice. "You'll do well, people like you. You'll make a lot of money," he would say. But what he didn't know is that before I even went to law school in 1986, I volunteered with the Georgia Justice Project. And I saw how the criminal system touches too many people, often lacks justice, creates alienation, and keeps people from lives of love, hope, and inclusion, and robs them of their potential. So instead of running from poverty and suffering, I felt the call to return to the places that haunted me and the places that motivated me to escape. I felt clear and certain about this life choice, but how could I ever explain it to my uncle? And how could I ever get his blessing? My name is Doug Ammar, and I'm the director of the Georgia Justice Project. And the need for this work is insanely huge. And if you think it doesn't affect you, well, you're wrong. In Georgia, 40% of the population have been arrested. And in America, half of all children have a parent with a criminal record. This system affects us all, and it's not slowing down. At the Georgia Justice Project, we, 1, help keep people from going into the system, 2, help people while they're in prison, and 3, when folks are coming out, we work to extract them from the system, helping them to end probation, helping them to remove the permanent stain of the system so that they have a real shot at a second chance, by making sure that their criminal record doesn't weigh them down as they work to make a fresh start. My Uncle Woody always bugged me about the fact that I took this nonprofit job, that I didn't make a ton of money. And he wouldn't just bug me about it. He would talk to my brother and my sister and tell them to get me to take a different job. And this went on for years. I tried to explain my sense of calling, the sense of purpose, and the cultural urgency, but none of it worked. That wasn't until I wrote him a very long letter. And in that letter, I talked about the summer of 1981. It was the end of my freshman year in college. I was returning home to West Virginia. My rides to and from college always dropped me off at my uncle's place. I was too ashamed of where my dad lived. And on that sunny May day, my uncle tried his best to get me to stay at his house just for a few days, he said. His tone was urgent, imploring. But regardless, I waved off his offer, and he reluctantly drove me across town to my dad's place. Uncle Woody stood by my dad's door as I went in and put my bags down. And as I surveyed the filth and the roaches and the uncountable empty liquor and beer bottles, I broke down and cried. My dad's disease was winning, his demise accelerated and imminent. And the only buffer to pain and suffering for my entire life stood in the door, held me, and cried with me. My uncle had no obligation to me, to my brother, or my sister. He didn't have to intervene in our lives, but he did, and thank God he did. And in my letter, I told him that I was only doing what he taught me. I was only doing what he did for me, for others, standing in the door, offering hope and compassion to those who needed it most. Uncle Woody never mentioned that letter to me. He was old school that way. But he never brought up the idea of me changing jobs to my brother or my sister or to me again. At the Georgia Justice Project, we stand in the doorway. And we've done it for thousands and thousands of people. because we believe that people are much more than the worst thing they've ever done. We believe they have more to contribute, more to accomplish, and they deserve more. And so do we. And at Georgia Justice Project, we work to make that belief a reality. Thank you.